I just watched Eddington. Is it any good? Let's talk about it. From Ari Aster, Eddington follows a standoff between a small town sheriff and its mayor during the COVID-19 pandemic. So even though I saw this one a couple days ago, I'm still struggling to put all my thoughts together for this movie because it's truly a lot to take in, just like any other movie from Ari Aster. But what's funny about this one is that I didn't really like it when I walked out of the theater after I finished watching it. But now as I think about it more and more, it's definitely growing on me, and that's probably because it really cements itself in your brain and leaves you with so many interesting ideas and imagery to talk about. But still, I think this one is going to be another very divisive film from A24 and Ari Aster. I'm going to spend a second talking about the direction and Ari Aster as a filmmaker because he really is one of the most original directors working today. If you don't like his movies, you still have to admit that it's really cool to see someone this inventive working in the industry. And me personally, I have a love-hate relationship with him right now. You know, I loved Hereditary. I think it's a masterpiece, top 10 horror movie for me. Then you have Midsommar, which I wasn't very high on my first watch, and I've only seen it one time. I've only seen the theatrical cut. I've never seen the director's cut, which I heard is really good, so I'll have to search that up. And then, of course, you have, I think, what is his most divisive film, which is Beau's Afraid. And that was my first one, that I saw in IMAX from him. And I actually really dug it. I liked it. It felt like a drug-induced trip in some of the best and worst ways possible. Certainly, you need to rewatch it more and more. I really just do want to buy that one on physical media to rewatch it because I've only seen it twice, and I still am so confused about what's happening in that movie. But I think that's just the greatness from Ari Aster. Making a divisive film is sometimes better than making a masterpiece because you have so many different ideas bouncing off the wall. You can talk to some person about it. If they didn't like it, you can have some really deep conversations about talking about it. I'm really interested to talk about this movie on Twitter with other people because, you're going to have a lot of people that hated this from, left side and right side because it is, a very political movie, as we said. Talks about COVID-19, talks about the riots and everything. So it's going to be divisive, but I'm going to love to have conversations about this. The direction and style is still there with this movie, though. It feels like a great Ari Aster movie, like he still cares about what he's doing. I love that from him. He still has these great long takes of characters, just walking around, having these long conversations. I really do enjoy that from him. I love those long takes. His style never gets old, and it's really fine-tuned here compared to his other ones. You also have the same cinematographer that worked on Mickey 17 here, and that led to some beautiful shots of New Mexico, which is kind of funny because New Mexico could look very boring in someone else's hands, but I really enjoyed how this one was shot. Of course, as I said, it has those long takes from Ari Aster, but then you have those really cool close-ups of just on Joaquin Phoenix's face, who we'll get to in a couple minutes, and then you have some really long shots, and then in the third act of the movie, which we'll talk about in a second, there's some insane action sequences that were shot so perfectly, and they were all really long takes. I love that. Even though I praise the direction from Aster, his script still has a lot of issues for me, and that's not because of it talking about COVID-19 and the riots. I do like when a story takes some, issues from the real world and talks about them in some very interesting ways, and this one does. But I think, this movie is just really messy, has so much going on. It's a little convoluted in some parts. Eddington also comes in at around 2.5 hours, but I still think that isn't long enough to carry everything that Ari Aster is trying to convey here. It definitely should have been at least like 3 hours to tell this complete story in a better and greater way. Now let's get to the cast. You of course have Joaquin Phoenix as the main star playing the sheriff, Joe Cross. He's never given me a bad performance. I think Joaquin Phoenix is one of the best actors working today. His sheriff is a very, very interesting character that I know some people are going to love, some people are going to hate. Let me just say his character really doesn't believe in COVID. Whenever he's going into a store, he's like, I don't have to wear a mask. I don't have to do any of this. So he really doesn't believe in any of this stuff. And he sees Pedro Pascal's character, the mayor, Ted Garcia. you know, in a very bad way. And then Joaquin Phoenix's character is trying to become the new mayor. So they're basically butting heads about this main aspect of the story. And then the riots enter this town, and Joe Cross kind of goes crazy. You get to see Joaquin Phoenix do some insane things, especially in the third act of this movie. So I really enjoyed him. As I said, Pedro Pascal, he's everywhere this year, but he still turns in a great performance. So I'm not mad about it. Then you have Emma Stone and Austin Butler in supporting roles. You know, I wish they were in it a little bit more, but as I said, I wish it was a little bit longer so you could have more of these conversations with these great characters, but I didn't really think that they had that much time to shine. So I'd say Joaquin Phoenix and Pedro Pascal are easily the best parts about this movie. And surprisingly, there's a strong amount of action in this film, and a very large shootout happens in the third act, and those scenes are honestly flawless. I have some problems with how this movie is paced. Like, it goes really fast and slows down, goes really fast. But that third act has so many interesting ideas in it, and the action sequences are insane. I was so impressed with the amount of anxiety that Aster was able to imbue in those specific sequences. They mostly take place, you know, at nighttime there, and then you have Joaquin Phoenix basically shooting a lot of people. He has these massive guns that he uses. It is so cool to see this. And as I said, they're very long shot sequences with minimal cuts, so they're done beautifully. I'm not going to spoil what leads to these sequences, but it's some insane events that happens in this movie. You're not ready for it. So overall, Eddington is of course going to be another divisive film from Ari Aster, but I'm liking it more and more the longer it sits with me. It's unhinged in some of the best and worst ways possible, and to be honest, I've never really seen a movie like this before. The script is messy, which led to a convoluted story, but the cast does a wonderful job at conveying this insane time in this world. Also, the cinematography and action in the third act are so freaking good, and I cannot wait for what Ari Aster does next. So on my first viewing, I'm going to give Eddington a 7 out of 10, but I still plan to go rewatch it at least once more in theaters to see if my thoughts change or remain the same. That's it for my review of Eddington. I hope you guys did enjoy. As I said, this movie is going to be an extremely divisive one, but I'd still recommend it to you all because there's a lot of talking points to be had with this movie. You're going to have some big conversations with it. You either love it, you either hate it, but if you're an Ari Aster fan, at least go see this movie in the theaters at least once because it is a really fun ride. But if you did enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.